my mom said it loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. "Stop embarrassing us. You've always been the problem. Your brother is the one who actually matters." I just stared at my water glass like it was suddenly the most interesting thing on the table, because everyone around us went quiet in that way. People do when they don't want to be involved. The waitress froze mid-step. My dad kept chewing like he didn't hear it, and my little brother smirked like he'd won something. "My name's Tessa. I'm 26, and up until that night I thought I had a normal life. I worked a steady office job in property admin, paid my own phone bill, kept my head down, and showed up to family stuff even when it felt like I was just there to fill a seat. My parents loved using the word family like it was a rule book, but it mostly meant do what we say. And my brother Ethan, 23, was their golden boy. Everyone knew it. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. Ethan failed out of community college twice, bounced between business ideas, and somehow still had my dad's credit card in his wallet like it was his birthright. Meanwhile, I was the one they called when they needed something printed or a form filled out or someone to be mature and smooth things over. That dinner was supposed to be a simple celebration because Ethan had a big opportunity. That's what my mom said. She also told me to wear something nice but not attention-grabbing, which should have been my first clue. We were at this mid-range Italian place near their neighborhood. The one my parents liked because the portions were huge and the lighting made them look younger. My aunts and uncle were there too, plus a couple of Ethan's friends. I showed up on time, smiled, hugged everybody, sat where I was told. I even brought a card because my mom hinted, hard, that Ethan would appreciate a little support. The second I sat down, Ethan slid his phone across the table to show everyone a screenshot of some email. He said, "So yeah, I'm basically hired." My dad slapped the table and said, "That's my son." My mom looked like she might cry. Everyone clapped like he'd been accepted to NASA. I asked, calm, "That's great. What's the job?" Ethan leaned back and said, "It's not a job. It's like an apprenticeship in real estate investing. Big money stuff. You wouldn't get it." Then he laughed and his friends laughed and my mom laughed too, like it was cute. I kept my face neutral because I've learned not to react. But I did say I literally work in property. I might actually get it. That's when my mom's smile dropped and she hit me with that line. "Stop embarrassing us. You've always been the problem. Your brother is the one who matters." And she didn't whisper it. She said it like a performance. My aunt stared at her plate. My uncle pretended to check his phone. Ethan's friends got real interested in the breadbasket. Nobody defended me. Not one person. My dad finally swallowed and said without looking at me, "Tessa, can you not make everything about you for once?" I nodded once, slow, like I was agreeing. And I let the silence sit there. The waitress came back and asked if we were ready to order, and my mom snapped back into cheerful mode like nothing happened. "Yes, we'll do the calamari," and a bottle of the house red, like I hadn't just been cut down in public. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I just sat through dinner like I was watching somebody else's life. My mom kept talking about Ethan's future, my dad kept bragging, and Ethan kept tossing little comments my way, like, "Some people just aren't built for success," and "Not everyone can be the favorite." Every time he said something, my mom would do that tight little laugh and glance around to see who was listening, like she liked the audience. When the check came, my dad slid it toward me without even asking. "You got this, right? Consider it your contribution," he said. I looked at the total. It was over $300. Ethan didn't reach for his wallet once. I paid. I didn't even sigh. I signed the receipt, put the pen down, and thanked the waitress like it was a normal Tuesday. On the drive home, my mom called me because of course she did, and she said, "Don't be dramatic about tonight. We're just trying to build Ethan up. You're older, you should understand." I said, "Okay," that was it. One word. And in that quiet space after I said it, I made a decision I didn't say out loud. I wasn't going to keep playing my role anymore. I got back to my apartment, the little one-bedroom I'd been proud to rent on my own, and there was a missed call from my dad, then a text from him, "We need to talk tomorrow. It's important." I stared at the screen for a second, then I set my phone, face down on the counter and started washing the dishes I didn't even use. Just something to do with my hands. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house because they made it sound urgent, like someone was sick. When I walked in, Ethan was already there, sprawled on the couch like he lived there, wearing sunglasses inside. My mom didn't offer me coffee. My dad didn't say hi. He just nodded toward the dining table like this was a business meeting. I sat. My mom folded her hands and said, "We've decided it's time you move out of your apartment and come back here." I blinked once. "Why?" My dad said, "Because Ethan needs your apartment." I waited. My mom added, "Your lease is up soon. You can just not renew. Ethan needs a place closer to the city for his new thing." I said, still calm, "So you want me to give him my apartment?" Ethan smirked and said, "Not give, let. Don't be selfish." My dad leaned forward and said, "And before you start, we're not debating this. You can stay here. It'll be good for you. Save money. Stop pretending you're independent." My mom said, "Honestly, you've been struggling anyway." That one landed because I hadn't been struggling. I'd been stable. I'd been stable. They just needed a story that made taking from me sound reasonable. I looked from my mom to my dad to Ethan, and none of them looked uncomfortable. Like this was normal. Like my life was just a storage unit they could rearrange whenever Ethan wanted something. I said, "My lease isn't up." My dad's jaw tightened. "You can break it." My mom jumped in fast. "We'll help with the fee. It's for family." Ethan said, "Plus, you don't even need your own place. You're just there, alone, doing nothing." I didn't correct him. I didn't defend myself. I just listened. And in my head, I started lining up facts the way I do at work. Names, dates, paper trails. Because there was one thing my parents never paid attention to, what I actually did for a living, and what I'd quietly been building while they were busy crowning Ethan king of the house. I stood up, smoothed my shirt, and said, "Let me think about it." My mom's face softened like she'd won. "Good. Don't take too long. Ethan needs an answer." I nodded, walked out, and didn't even slam the door. But as I got in my car, my phone buzzed with an email notification from my job, a subject line I'd been waiting on for weeks. And when I read the first sentence, I realized what happens next was going to change everything for all of us. I sat in my car in my parents' driveway and opened that email again, slower this time. Like if I read it carefully enough, it would turn into something else. It didn't. It said the offer was approved, the funds were cleared, and the closing packet was ready for signature. The property address was right there, bold as day. And yeah, I knew the address. I knew it because I'd driven past it my whole life. My parents' house, the one they treated like a throne. I didn't start shaking or anything dramatic like that. I just exhaled through my nose and stared at the steering wheel for a second, doing the math in my head. Then I put the car in reverse, backed out, and drove home like I was heading to any other appointment. Because the truth was, I'd been building something quietly for 2 years, not out of revenge, more like insurance. I worked in property administration for a management company, and while Ethan was posting hustle quotes and my parents were co-signing his nonsense, I was learning how leases work, how deeds work, how people hide debt, and how often perfect families are hanging on by a thread. I'd started saving hard after my dad borrowed $3,000 from me for Ethan's startup and never paid it back. I stopped eating out. I took on weekend side work doing lease audits for small landlords. I kept my credit clean, and when the opportunity came up, I took it. A small investor group I'd helped with paperwork let me buy in on a deal. A real deal. My name on real documents. Real ownership. The kind of thing my parents thought only important people did. The deal was simple on paper. My parents had refinanced twice and missed enough payments that the bank was ready to move. They didn't tell anybody. They kept their cars shiny and their Facebook photos perfect, and their mouths full of advice. But behind the scenes, they were drowning. The house was going into a forced sale situation through a legal process, and an LLC was purchasing it and leasing it back to them so they could stay. A lot of families do it, quietly, because it saves them from a full foreclosure and buys time. The LLC was ours, and my slice of it was big enough that I had signing authority, which meant I wasn't just involved. I was, for all practical purposes, the person who could decide their next rent number and whether they stayed. I didn't smile about it. I just noticed how clean it felt, like a lever dropping into my hand. That night, my mom texted, "Any update? Ethan needs to plan." I replied, still thinking. The next day, I met with the attorney for our group, a calm older woman named Denise who never wasted words. She slid the closing documents across the table and said, "Once this is signed and recorded, the LLC owns the property. The occupants will become tenants under a new lease." I said, "The occupants are my parents." Denise looked at me for a beat. "And your brother?" I said. "He lives there on and off. He's not on anything." She nodded like she'd heard that story 1,000 times. "Then he has no right to the property unless the lease grants it." I didn't say, "Good." I just asked, "Can we require all adult occupants to be listed?" Denise said, "Yes, you can require background checks. You can require income verification. You can limit occupants. It's your lease." My pen hovered over the signature line, and I could almost hear my mom's voice from the restaurant. "Your brother is the one who matters." I signed anyway, my hand steady. Driving home, I replayed yesterday at my parents' table. Ethan saying I was selfish. My dad saying I was pretending to be independent. My mom deciding my apartment belonged to Ethan. The part that stuck wasn't even the request. It was how normal it felt to them. Like I was a resource, not a person. 2 days later, my dad called me again. "So, did you come to your senses?" he said. "No hello." I said, "I'm not breaking my lease." He went quiet, then did that low, angry laugh he uses when he thinks he's being reasonable. "Then you can't expect us to keep supporting you." I said, "You don't support me." He said, "We gave you a home. We raised you." I said, "Okay." He didn't like that. He said, "If you won't do this for Ethan, then maybe you shouldn't be part of this family." I let that hang there. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I said, "If that's how you feel." My mom grabbed the phone in the background. I could hear her because my dad always has it on speaker. She said, "Don't be cold, Tessa. We're not asking for much. Ethan is finally doing something. Don't sabotage him because you're jealous." Jealous. That word was their favorite weapon. They used it whenever I didn't hand over what they wanted. I said, "I'm not jealous. I'm just saying no." Ethan's voice cut in from somewhere nearby. "Then you can figure your own life out. Don't come crying when you're broke." My dad said, "Pack your stuff from the house. The few things you left in your old room. Come get it this weekend. After that, we're changing the locks." My mom added, "We need your key back, and don't show up unannounced anymore. It upsets Ethan." I looked around my apartment at my quiet little life, a plant on the windowsill, my work laptop, my calendar on the fridge. I said, "Got it." Then I hung up. Saturday, I went over with 2 empty storage bins and my friend Mariah because I knew better than to walk into that house alone. My parents were waiting like it was an eviction. My mom stood in the entryway with her arms crossed and said, "Make it quick." Ethan was on the stairs, grinning, holding my old childhood keychain like a trophy. My dad said, "Your room is basically storage now. Don't touch anything else." I said, "I'm just getting my stuff." Mariah stayed close but quiet. My aunt happened to be there too, sitting at the kitchen island, not making eye contact. I walked down the hallway to my old room and saw my childhood trophies in a cardboard box, my high school yearbooks stacked like trash, and my bed gone. The closet was half empty, like someone had already picked through it. I opened one bin and started packing what was left, slow and careful. My mom appeared in the doorway and said, "You know, if you weren't so difficult, you'd have a place here." I didn't answer. Ethan leaned on the doorframe behind her and said, "It's fine. She'll figure it out. She always does. She's the worker bee." He said worker bee like it was funny. Like I wasn't standing right there. Mariah's jaw tightened, but she didn't speak. I kept packing. At the end, I carried the bins out, set them in my trunk, and walked back to the front door. My dad held his hand out. Key, he said. I reached into my pocket and put my old house key in his palm. He closed his fingers around it like he'd won. My mom said, "Good, now we can move forward without all this drama." Ethan waved from the stairs. "Later, Tessa." I turned, paused, and looked straight at him. "Yeah," I said. "Later." And I meant it in a way I didn't explain. That night I got an automated email from the county, deed recorded, ownership transferred. The next morning, Denise called me. "The lease back needs to be issued Monday. Do you want to keep it standard?" I stared at the blank wall in my apartment and thought about my mom's voice in that restaurant, the way she used me as an example of what not to be. I said, "No, I want it updated. Adult occupants listed, market rate, strict late fees." Denise didn't gasp or judge. She just said, "Send me the terms." I opened my notes app and typed out numbers that made sense on paper and hurt in real life. Not insane, not illegal, just real. The kind of real my parents never wanted to face. Then Mariah called and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." She said, "What are you going to do?" I looked at the deed confirmation again. I said, "I'm going to let them live in the world they built." Monday came fast. Denise emailed me the draft lease and asked for final approval. I read every line twice. The landlord line showed the LLC name. My name sat underneath as authorized manager, and at the bottom, in clean black text, was the new rent amount, due on the 1st, with late fees starting on the 3rd. I approved it. At 9:07 a.m., Denise sent it to the tenants. My parents. I watched the sent confirmation like I was watching a door close. At 9:19, my phone rang. It was my mom. I let it ring twice before I answered. Her voice came out tight and confused. "Tessa, why did we just get a lease from some company saying they own our house?" I leaned back on my couch, looked at my quiet living room and said, "Calm, because they do." Then she said the one thing I didn't expect, the one sentence that told me Ethan had no idea what was about to hit him, and it made me sit up straight because the next conversation was going to be the moment everything flipped. My mom said, "Ethan told us you work for people like this. Did you do this to us?" Her voice wasn't yelling yet. It was more like she was trying to decide which version of the story made her look best. In the background, I heard my dad say, "Give me the phone." Then Ethan, loud, "What company is it? I'll handle it." I kept my voice even. "I didn't do anything to you. The house was sold." My mom snapped. "Sold? My buy. Who?" I said. "By the bank. It's public record." There was a beat of silence like they were all staring at each other in that kitchen. My dad got on the line. "Tessa," he said slow, like he was talking to a cashier he planned to intimidate. "You need to tell us what you know, right now." I said, "You got the lease. It explains it." He said, "Don't play games. We've lived here 25 years. No one can just take our house." I said, "They can if you stop paying." He made it sound like he choked on the truth. Then he changed tactics fast. "Okay, fine. If this is real, you'll help us. You'll call your little work contacts and fix it. This is your responsibility." I looked at my coffee table where I'd left the printed deed transfer because I knew I'd want to see it on paper. I said, "It's not my responsibility." My mom jumped back in, sugary now. "Honey, we're just scared. You understand we need time. Ethan is trying to get on his feet. You can't let strangers bully us." She said strangers like she didn't know it was me. I didn't correct her yet. I let the moment stretch. Then Ethan took the phone and his voice got sharp. "Listen, Tessa, if you're involved in this, you're gonna undo it. I don't care what you have to do. And if you don't, you're dead to us. For real this time." I pictured him on those stairs, waving goodbye like he'd kicked me out of the family. I said, "You already did that." He laughed, quick and mean. "Yeah, and look at you. Still alone. Still bitter." I said, "Read the lease." Then I hung up. I didn't block them. I just put my phone down and went to work like normal. By lunchtime, I had 11 missed calls. 2 voicemails from my mom, one from my dad, and a text from Ethan that said, "Stop hiding. Tell use the landlord hard." I waited until after work because I wasn't going to have this conversation while staring at spreadsheets. At 6:10 p.m., Denise called and said, "They're asking if they can negotiate. They sound frantic." I said, "They can request a meeting in writing." Denise paused. "Do you want to be present?" I said. "Yes." She didn't ask why. She just said, "Tomorrow, 4 p.m., conference room B." The next day, I showed up in a plain blazer, hair pulled back, same look I wore when I dealt with tenant disputes at my job. Denise was there with a folder. I sat with my hands folded and a pen ready. At 4007, my parents walked in with Ethan right behind them. My mom's eyes were puffy like she'd been crying, but her chin was lifted like she wanted sympathy and respect at the same time. My dad's face was tight, jaw working. Ethan looked irritated more than scared, like this was an inconvenience that shouldn't apply to him. They all froze when they saw me at the table. My mom said, "What is this?" Ethan said, "Why are you here?" Denise stood and said, professional and calm, "This is a meeting regarding the lease for 214 Willow Crest. Miss Bain, Tessa Harper is the authorized managing member of the owner LLC." My dad blinked like his brain stalled out. "No," he said. "That's not funny." Denise didn't react. "It's filed with the county. Would you like copies?" My mom's mouth opened and closed, and she looked at me like she was trying to find the old version of me that would shrink. I stayed still. Ethan stepped forward. "This is a joke. She can't own our house." Denise said, "She does not own it personally. The LLC does. She has authority to enforce the lease." Ethan turned to me, voice rising. "You did this because we asked for your apartment? Are you serious?" I looked at him and said, "You didn't ask." My dad slammed his palm on the table. "Tessa, enough. Fix this. We are your parents." I picked up my pen and set it down again, slow. "You kicked me out," I said. "You changed the locks. You told me not to show up." My mom flinched like she wanted to deny it, but she remembered there were witnesses now. Denise slid the lease copy across the table. "These are the terms. Rent is due on the 1st. My mom grabbed it and scanned the number, and her face tightened. "This is insane," she said. "We can't pay this." Denise said, "It's market rate for the area." My dad pointed at the section about occupants. "It says all adults must be listed and approved." "What is this?" I said. "It's standard." Ethan said, "I'm not filling out some background check like I'm a criminal." I looked at him. "Then don't live there." The room went dead quiet. Even my dad stopped moving. My mom whispered, "You're putting your brother on the street?" I said, "No. I'm saying he doesn't get to live places for free anymore." Ethan snapped, "You can't do that." "Mom, tell her." My mom turned to my dad like he was supposed to solve it with a firm voice. My dad tried. "Tessa," he said, "if you do this, you're done. You'll never be welcome again." I nodded once. "You already made that clear." He looked like he wanted me to beg. I didn't. Denise spoke again, same steady tone. "The lease is enforceable. If rent is not paid, late fees apply. Continued non-payment may lead to eviction." My mom's voice got small. "Tessa, please." She didn't apologize. She didn't say she was wrong. She said please like I was supposed to forget the restaurant, the check, the key in my dad's hand, the way my room was picked clean. I opened my folder and slid one more sheet across the table. It was a payment plan option Denise and I had drafted. Slightly lower rent for 6 months, automatic payments required, and one rule in bold: Ethan could not be an occupant unless he was listed, approved, and contributing. My dad read it, eyes darting. "So you're controlling who lives in our house," he said. I said, "I'm enforcing a lease on a property you don't own." Ethan scoffed, but his eyes were flicking, calculating like he finally understood he couldn't talk his way out. My mom said, "If we sign this, we can stay?" I said, "If you pay, you can stay." My dad's hand shook, just slightly, as he picked up the pen. That was the first time I'd ever seen him not in control. He looked at me like he wanted to say something that would hurt. Then he realized he didn't have any power left to back it up. He signed. My mom signed right after, wiping her cheek with the side of her hand. Ethan didn't sign anything because there was nothing for him to sign. Denise gathered the papers and said, "You will receive countersigned copies by email." Ethan stood there a second, like he expected someone to stop him from being humiliated. Nobody did. On the way out, he leaned toward me and hissed, "You think you won." I looked up at him and said, "I think you're going to get a job." He opened his mouth, then shut it, because for once he didn't have a comeback that worked in the real world. After they left, Denise asked, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." And I was, because the justice part wasn't the rent number, it was the silence. The fact that they finally had to talk to me like I was a person with authority, not a backup plan. The first of the next month came, and the payment hit on time. Automatic draft. No drama. 2 weeks later, my mom texted me a photo of Ethan's packed duffel bag by the front door and wrote, "He's moving in with a friend." I didn't reply right away. I waited until I got home, set my keys on the counter, and ate dinner in my quiet apartment that I paid for myself. Then I typed, "Okay." A month after that, my dad emailed me an email, not a call asking if we could talk like adults. I told him we could, but it would be in public and it would be respectful, or it wouldn't happen. He agreed. The funny part is, none of this brought me joy the way people think revenge does. It just brought balance. They tried to use family as a reason to take from me, and all it did was remind me that respect is the real currency. When someone shows you they only love you when you're useful, the lesson isn't to scream. It's to get smart, get steady, and make sure the next time they reach for your life, they run into a boundary they can't move. If you've ever been treated like the extra in your own family, hit like and subscribe, because the next story I tell is the one I wish I'd heard sooner. And what I learned after this still surprises me.